Now moving on, anger continues to simmer on the streets of Sri Lanka days after the People's Fury unleashed chaos and conflict on the streets of Sri Lanka. In a bid to now control protesters, Sri Lankan authorities issued a shoot-on-sight order on Tuesday to quell any unrest. This order comes after people disobeyed a nationwide curfew already in place and set buildings and vehicles on fire for the second day on Tuesday. Thousands of security forces have been deployed to enforce the curfew, which has now been extended till Thursday morning, and security forces can shoot on sight anyone either looting public property or causing harm to life. Monday's violence represents a turning point in the country's ongoing economic crisis. Weeks of peaceful demonstrations turned ugly and forced Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa to resign. His departure, however, has done little to subdue the unrest here. His brother Gotabaya Rajapaksa remains president of the country and now wields considerable power, including command over the security forces. While Mahinda Rajapaksa's resignation was intended to pave the way for a unity government, the opposition has indicated that it does not intend to allow Gotabaya to remain in his post. The SJB member said that the opposition leader Sajith Premadasa will only accept a post of Prime Minister. SJB had submitted a no-confidence motion against the government and the president last week. A meeting of the party leaders scheduled to be held later virtually today to discuss the country's volatile situation. An in-person meeting of the leaders was earlier scheduled to be held in the parliament, but it was later cancelled over the security concerns. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka's neighbour India on Tuesday also distanced itself from the Rajapaksa-led government and pledged support for the people of Sri Lanka. External Affairs Ministry spokesperson said that India was fully supportive of Sri Lanka's democracy and economic recovery. The Indian High Commission in Colombo is busy addressing a flurry of rumours and fake news. The first is that Mahinda and his family had been flown to India in a helicopter. Second, denying that New Delhi was sending troops to Sri Lanka, saying such actions were not in line with India's position. Now with that, China too has issued a statement saying it is closely following the violent turn of events in Sri Lanka. It also asked all Chinese nationals working in the island nation to be alert and on guard against risks. Beijing so far has not commented on the unfolding events, including the Prime Minister's resignation, whose government had paved the way for large-scale Chinese investments. The European Union condemned the violence and called on Sri Lankan authorities to investigate those responsible for the unrest. And for more on this, joining us live on this broadcast is Jehan Perera. He is the Executive Director of National Peace Council of Sri Lanka. Thank you so much for joining us at this hour. My first question to you, the curfew has been extended. Authorities have put in place the shoot-on-sight order. What is your assessment of the current political instability in the country?
I think the reason for the orders to be given to even shoot on sight and also the extension of the curfew is because there have been sporadic incidents of violence that target government members' properties. Several very large houses, mansions owned by ministers and members of parliament, as well as hotels and other businesses owned by them, have been torched by anti-government protesters. And I think this is what has motivated the curfew, continuing of the curfew. But in addition, there's also a general strike that is in effect at this time, which is going to be a further blow to the Sri Lankan economy. So what is needed is a political resolution, and the political resolution is that the government leadership that is responsible for this crisis, that has led this country into this terrible situation, should actually step down, because that's what the people are demanding. That's what the protesters are asking for. And especially after the violence perpetrated against the peaceful demonstrators by the government members, which was also instigated after a meeting with the Prime Minister, they definitely want the government leadership to step down.
All right. Now, Mr. Perera, I was going to come to that. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa's resignation, former Prime Minister's, was meant to pave the way forward for a unity government. However, there is at this point no clarity on that. We also mentioned that they do not seem to be keen on forming a unity government at this point. What do you think needs to be done immediately at this point?
Well, the Prime Minister stepping down was only part of what was necessary, because the main target of the protesters has been actually the president. Because in our system, the president is very powerful. And this president in particular, after he came to power and won the election in November 2019, he immediately passed what's called the 20th Amendment, which further concentrated power in himself and made himself head of government, head of state, head of the military, head of everything, with the power to appoint anyone. So the target has been him, and the Prime Minister stepping down was not enough. Of course, it's a major step forward, the Prime Minister stepping down. But I think the President also has to bite the bullet and also step down. Maybe he can, but he has been very quiet, he's been very silent. He has not addressed the people. I think he should address the people, announce his that he's going to resign, and outline the process by which it will happen. If he does that, then there is a possibility of redemption.
Right. Now, that being said, do you think the political crisis in the country has overshadowed the economic woes of the nation? What do you think is the way out of this? What measures can the government take, or a future unity government, if one is formed, take to pull the country out of this crisis?
Yes, the parties, we all realize that there has to be a unity government, and that unity government has to be formed out of the present parliament, because there is no way we can have an election in a very quick time, in a short time. So, but for that, the necessary conditions have to be made and laid, and one would be the announcement by the president that he is going to step down. And if that happens, then I think the general strike that is now going on will be called off, and perhaps the protests also will diminish, because the reason the protesters are there, the reason the general strike has been called, is because people feel either the government won't respond to them, won't listen to them. And this is the way to get what they want. So if that happens, then I think we'll be better situated to restore the economy, also to win international goodwill, because I think an all-party government may have a better chance of winning the support of the international community than the present government, which has lost all its credibility.
All right. Mr. Jehan Perera, thank you so much for your assessment of the situation and joining us on this broadcast. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.